It's a rather sunny day here in Reigate and we're here at Canon's UK HQ to get a first look at their new cinema camera offering, the C200. At first glance, this camera can do 4K 10-bit recording up to 60 frames per second in RAW. It can also do 12-bit recording 4K up to 25 frames per second, again in RAW and all internally. If high frame rate recording is more your thing, then this can do up to 120 frames per second in full HD. And of course you get Canon's lovely colour science to go along with it. So where does this camera sit in Canon's lineup? Well, where do the lines blur between the C100 and the C300 Mark IIs? Let's start things off with a look at the body. In a side-by-side comparison, we can see that the C200 is smaller in height and has taken on a more compact block-style build than the C100 or 300, a design that should make for easier mounting when it comes to using gimbals and electronic stabilizers. It's roughly the same weight as the C300 at 1.4 kilograms, which is going to help with handheld stability, a noticeable difference especially if you're coming from shooting on the lighter C100s. The top handle no longer houses the two audio XLR inputs, and they've been relocated to the body of the camera, which means that you now have the option of shooting with a more compact setup without the top handle, while still being able to record external audio. The screen and its mounts have been redesigned, adding more flexibility as it opens up different mounting options. And at its heart is a 1.23 million dot 4-inch LCD touchscreen. On the back, for recording media, there are two SD card slots, and you'll also find a single CFast 2 slot on the side. When it comes to power, the C200 takes the newer batteries found in the C300 Mark IIs, and should deliver a similar runtime. So the BP30 batteries should keep you going for roughly 2.5 hours. So what's inside the C200? It has a Super 35mm sensor. It's actually the same sensor that's found in their flagship C700 camera, and it can capture an impressive dynamic range of up to 15 stops when shooting in RAW. Now, for the recording formats. The C200 has some pretty impressive specs. It can record up to 4K 60p in 10-bit Canon RAW Lite, or if you want to go to 12-bit, up to 25p. All at a rather healthy bitrate of 1 gigabits per second. And just to emphasize, this is all done internally. This is something that both the C100 and the C300 Mark IIs simply don't have the ability to do. Now, the sample shots that you see on screen have been downscaled to 1080p and compressed for the web. If you want to check out the RAW files as they come straight out of the camera, we'll get them hosted for you to download on our blog in the near future. It's only possible to record in Canon RAW Lite to the single CFast 2 card. However, you can simultaneously record a lower resolution up to 2K as an MP4 to be used as a proxy or a backup to either of the SD card slots. When it comes to monitoring the log footage, you do have the ability to load in LUTs for preview. And a particularly nice feature is the ability to load in a different LUT per different video output. For example, I can view the flat log footage as it's captured on screen and set one of the external outputs, such as the HDMI, connected to an external monitor with a LUT. This is particularly useful if you're working with a director or you have your client with you, so you can show them how the shot may look when treated in post. Whilst we're talking about monitoring, it's worth noting that the screen on the C200 is a touchscreen, something not seen before on the Canon Cine camera lineup. This isn't to aid with any menu selections, it's only for use with the touch focus, which in our time shooting with the camera finds its focus relatively quickly. No doubt thanks to utilising the same dual pixel autofocus system found in the C100 and 300 Mark IIs. At launch, the C200 can record in two codecs, the new Canon RAW Lite or MP4. Now, the MP4 codec doesn't quite do 4K, it actually does up to UHD resolution, and it does so at 8-bit 420 internally. If you want to do 422, then you will need to use the HDMI output with an external recorder. It does have a decent bitrate of up to 150 megabits per second, but it is using long GOP compression. So if you wanted to record using a better chroma subsampling ratio and using iframe compression, then you still will need to use an external recorder. One thing to note with the C200 is that there isn't a way to get a RAW output via its HDMI or SDI outputs, something to bear in mind. If you need something that's in between the RAW and the 8-bit MP4 recording formats, then there will be a firmware update that will bring XF AVC codec to the mix, which should bridge that gap. Canon have announced that this will be available in a firmware update that is scheduled to be released somewhere in the first half of 2018. If you're looking for higher frame rate recordings than the already possible 60p in 4K RAW, then for a more exaggerated slow motion look, the C200 can record up to 120 frames per second in full HD, using the full sensor, compared with the C300 Mark II, which can do the same high frame rate, but only in crop mode. So it seems the C200 has positioned itself right in the middle of these two cameras. The C200 does have some features that really do make it stand out from its younger and its older siblings. In particular, the 4K RAW internal recording, something that's only seen on the C700 camera. If you're coming from the C100, then this camera will open up some more options to your filmmaking, packaging some high-end features such as the superior autofocus and Canon's colour science into a camera body that isn't going to break the bank. We'll be doing a more in-depth hands-on review of the C200 in the near future, so make sure you check out wex.co.uk/blog to keep up to date with the latest industry news.